Fear is the path to the dark side.
Bombs are falling, people are dying, but it's not a war? That's what the president and his lawyers said. Here now is someone who vehemently disagrees with that idea. He's been fighting to end all of America's unconstitutional wars. Ohio Democratic Congressman Dennis Kucinich. Congressman Kucinich, welcome here. You and I have long agreed on the role of Congress under the Constitution, and it's crystal clear. Congress shall declare war. It's not a responsibility for the president. It's not even in the same section of the Constitution that enumerates the president's powers. And since you've been making this argument, you've gotten some support from people like Ron Paul and some other Republican libertarians. Have you gotten support from any more Democrats?
Yes, there are many Democrats who are beginning to understand the necessity of speaking out against the president's assumption of powers that rightfully belong to Congress under the Constitution. And I think we'll continue to see more and more people speaking out.
Where will this go, Congressman Kucinich? Will you, for example, offer and debate on the floor of the House a resolution to compel the president to get the military out of Libya? Will you offer and debate on the floor of the House an amendment to the War Powers Act to make it crystal clear? You and I think it already is crystal clear, but apparently the president and his lawyers don't. Stated differently, what is the Congress going to do besides sit there like a potted plant and let presidents from George Bush and Barack Obama and even their predecessors fight whatever wars they want?
Well, you know, we need to do a number of things. Legislatively, we can move forward to attempt to cut off funds. I've proposed an amendment that would do that. We need to look at what we can do to change the War Powers Act. You know, essentially, the War Powers Act was, I think, an unconstitutional ceding of congressional power, which gave the president more authority in matters of war and peace than the founders intended. There's a discussion of legal action going on right now to see if we might have any recourse in that way.
I honestly would argue to you that there needs to be more intellectual honesty by people like you. Charlie Rangel, your colleague, who is a congressman from here in New York City, sat here and said to me, well, the reason we let the president get away with it is because we like him and we like the other things that the president does. I mean, most respectfully, that's not a basis to allow the president to start a war and to cause human death because you like him as a person or you like his domestic policy. The Congress can no longer look the other way, or this president and future presidents will claim this Libyan thing as a precedent to do it again.
You are absolutely right, Judge. And this isn't about whether you like President Obama or not. It's not whether you like Democrats or Republicans. It's about whether or not you love the Constitution of the United States. And as you stated at the beginning of this segment, the administration trying to claim this is not a war, just fix on that thought for a second. 2,000-pound bombs, dozens of them dropped. Maybe 200 Tomahawk missiles. We've got jet fighters, bombers. We've got CIA on the ground. And they're saying it's not a war. We have to challenge the type of thinking that would try to assert that to the American people. It is absolutely Orwellian. And if that's the kind of thinking that's behind this war, then Congress must reclaim the power that the founders rightfully placed in Congress to make the determination as to whether we go to war or not, because if we don't, as you say, look, they can use this kind of logic to take us anywhere.
Right.
We better stand on the Constitution.
All right. Now I want to discuss something before you go that we are likely to disagree on. And that's the president's speech earlier today, where he said the same president who signed into law an extension of the Bush-era tax cuts. I know you voted against it, and I know in his heart of hearts he didn't want it, but he signed it into law. Now says basically that was a mistake, and people making more than $250,000 a year should pay more. What kind of sense, Congressman Kucinich, does it make to tax people who invest their money and who create jobs to take more money from them in a deep recession like we're in today?
Well, it's about, I think, inevitably, it's about trying to get more money into the economy and get people to spend more. And the way that you do is to have more people who are working. And I think the emphasis has to be on job creation. And I'm hopeful that the White House is going to be more involved in that. And you know, you and I may disagree on this, but I don't think here's my private sector.
The government consumes wealth. Private investment produces wealth. If you take $1 away from somebody that makes $250,000 a year, that's $1 less that they can invest or put in their business. If you give that to the government, it's gone. If you put it into a business, it might create more wealth. Don't you accept that argument?
Well, you have to look at how government's spending money. If government's spending money on war, if government's spending money on massive tax cuts, if government is looking the other way, well, the trade deficit grows to outer space, then you have a reason to question the role of government in the economy. On the other hand, government can do productive things. Government can rebuild America's infrastructure. We have over $3 trillion in projects that need to be accomplished. We could put America back to work. And you can't rely only on the private sector to do that. You know that the private sector has actually made a lot of money and saw stocks go up as a result of shedding millions of workers. We've got to take an economy in consideration that balances private and public interests.
I wish we had more time, but we don't. We'll have you back again. Congressman Dennis Kucinich on the Constitution and the economy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Judge.
The video that shocked the nation. The lawmaker that's doing something about it. Outrage over what your government did to this little 6-year-old girl in public. Next.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.